Ghostbusters, just kidding. Okay, hey everybody, how's it going? We got something different today, a little bit different, in terms of what we're watching. So we've been watching so much Debate Bro content, and yes, that's me pushing back on it, but it's like, I don't know. I wanted to watch something positive, for lack of a better term today, and I think I found something that will fit the bill. This is Twitch streamer Lumi Rue and Twitch streamer Lost Sioux, and they are talking about Indigenous gender, and it should be an interesting conversation, right? And it should be a little bit of a changing of gears, which I feel like a lot of you would appreciate, right? After having to kind of absorb. I mean, like, I know it's like filtered through Irene, so it's like it's not as toxic as it would normally be, right? But you've had to endure so much toxicity, right? And every time there's like a fucking trans, drama involving trans streamers, it seems like that happens, right? It seems like there's a lot of toxicity that goes with it, a lot of toxicity that Demon Mama had to endure, that Doe had to endure, and I wanted to kind of switch gears and like, let's watch something nice, right? Hiya, Ferris. Good to see you. Wait, no subtitles here? Oh, that's right. So the joke is that, like, okay, so on Twitch, there's an automatic subtitle thing, right? But it is so bad, and some people have clipped me saying things, and it looks like I'm saying something different. With the subtitles don't. The subtitles get a few of my words wrong, and it's funny. It's hilarious. It's gonna be even more funny when I get canceled for something that those subtitles say. Look at what she said. It's like, no, I didn't say that. It was the subtitle. It was the subtitle. I swear to God. Oh my God. So yeah, this is I haven't watched anything by Lumi. This is Lumi Rue. I haven't watched anything by them in a long time. Lost Sioux, I think I might have seen Lost Sioux once on a non-compete panel, right? But I don't really know that much about Lost Sioux as a creator, so let's check it out.
And sometimes I feel shame because I feel like I have to defend my non-binariness by, like, proving my masculinity. But then it's like, no.
Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
You are who you are. No one has the right to tell you who you are and who you aren't. Only you do. And you have every right to define your reality, because reality begins within.
You know what? I think there might actually be a YouTube thing. Like, so it came in my... And you know what the back end is, Chad? Do you know about the back end? So you see the front end, right? That's this stream or this video, depending on how you're watching it. There's also a back end, which is the creator end, right? I have a different interface, let's just say, that than you do. And part of that back end, like, they send me stuff where they're talking about upcoming features that, I could possibly use for YouTube. One of those features is supposedly captions, in that I would be captioned as I stream, right? So rather than waiting for the video to, what does it get to, like 100, 200, and then it gets captioned usually, it would just be captioned immediately, right? And one wonders how well the captions would work, but I mean, the captions on the videos work okay, so maybe it's a good thing. Twitch chat Irene, thank you. For a second, I thought you were, like, describing me as Twitch chat Irene, like that I was somehow different. I was acting different. Am I acting too much like Twitch Irene? Is there a different Irene between Twitch and YouTube? I don't know. Let's fix this though. Okay, here we go. It's this one and that one. And yes. Thank you so much, chat, for noticing things like that, because I definitely don't. I don't know if you know this, but I have executive dysfunction in my brain.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to chill on the wholesomeness, or you're gonna make me cry. Tone your wholesomeness down.
This is literally Indigenous way of thinking. And there are some variances for different tribes, have some different variances, but there are a fundamental truth.
It's the classic chat segment from for the nocommentchick heads.
In that fact,
for the true
and fact. Reality begins within. So you...
Oh yeah, we should start an NCC cyclopedia, right? Shouldn't we? Like, there should be an NCC cyclopedia.
You are the master of your reality, not
Otherwise, there's so much lore, and people are going to lose track of it, including me.
anyone else.
The only people that really keep... I'm going to have to hire one of the trolls to, like, keep track of the lore, because they seem to be the only ones that remember all of the lore.
And anyone that tries to force another reality on you is doing a form of colonization.
Hey!
Hello.
Hi! Thank you for being patient and waiting for me while I took a quick break. Glad to have you here.
No problem. I mean, I'm late, so...
I heard that you had a late stream last night.
Yeah, usually my Friday nights are Indigenous movie nights.
Ah, what did you watch last night?
I keep hearing about these political parties, but there's never any cake.
Dreamkeeper and the last dog soldier.
Ooh. What do you have like a... If you could recommend one Indigenous movie to get people like started, do you have like one recommendation you would give?
I would have to say Dreamkeeper.
Dreamkeeper. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. I might have to check that out.
It's a movie basically that tells you a bunch of different
content warning
stories.
for sure. Definite content warning.
That are like historical history stories from like different nations.
Sounds like something we might have to do a Discord night for. That's
So yeah.
thank you. But
problem.
I heard that you were up late, so I knew you might be a little bit off on time, and I would prefer you get your sleep. You didn't have to pop in so quickly. I know you just woke up, so no stress.
Well, no, I'm late, so I have to.
So, for anyone who's not familiar, like if you're from YouTube and you don't watch Twitch streamers, this is Lumi Rue. They are non-binary. They've been streaming for a long time now on a lot of different subjects: disability, gender, trans rights, Indigenous rights. I think they've talked about land back, and then Lumi's guest is Lost Sioux. Lost Sioux is oh my god. I knew where Lost Sioux was from. I believe it's Canada, but that's a big place. So I believe I thought I knew more specifically. But anyway, yeah, Lost Sioux has done a lot of work on land back, on water rights and Indigenous rights. So these are two Twitch streamers.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So
Oh god, I gotta change my Twitter.
I kind of want to start with just a little bit of background. You're from, well, first off, what time zone are you in? Are you in Eastern time?
Actually, right now I'm in Mountain Time.
Oh, okay. I was trying to like.
Mountain time. That's exotic.
You're from the Sioux
I guess if you're from the
tribe,
coast,
right?
it is.
Yes.
And
Like
that's
me.
in like, is that like the northern Midwest kind of area, typically?
Typically, but not necessarily so. Like we have everything from like Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota.
Mountain time. Well, it's not like, okay, so what it is like there are different time zones. There's like 4 different time zones across the lower 48 states of the United States, okay? So those are Eastern, that's like New York and your seaboard states. Then you've got Central, that is like your Midwestern states, I believe. Then you've got Mountain, those are your like Western, you know, the Rockies, that area, you know, kind of states, Colorado, and then you've got Pacific, right? And that is the only reasonable time zone to live in, because otherwise you have to get up way fucking early, and I wouldn't like that. I didn't know the Sioux extended into Montana.
Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and also in.
But it does sound pretty cool. Mountain time, like it's like we're on mountain time now, and it works differently. You're like, oh yeah, there's not 24 hours, there's 16 hours, and then like there's like 8 days in a week. Or I don't know how it would be different, chat, but like you could imagine, one could imagine.
Alberta.
Gotcha. All right, yeah.
Oh my god, are we gonna talk about time as a social construction?
I'm trying to familiarize myself a little bit. I was wondering, like, I haven't got to hear your background, and I assume that, like, obviously everyone's experiences are different, but what is your connection to the Sioux tribe? Did you grow up around other Sioux people? What's that look like?
Well, my mom's Sioux. My dad's actually from one of the West Coast tribes. But we go along our mother's pedigree, so to speak. So, like, that's where we basically, Nebraska and a lot of the Core Plains, yes. High River, Bojack, lineage. Thanks, Eric. So we go by our mother's lineage, right? Whereas, like, it's not, how do I put it? It's not a matriarchal and it's not a patriarchal. It's something completely different. Like, the closest we can find in English would be egalitarian. And that doesn't even quite fit the bill.
That makes sense.
But our bloodline comes from our mothers. That's where we go by. Oh yeah, we come from this tribe and this is our tribe. I was stolen at like 3 months old from my mom through the 60s scoop. So I didn't get the opportunity to grow up with my people like a lot of people have. I was stolen, and then basically I almost died while in foster care. Which is why I have so much longevity. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I went through the system. Then it wasn't until I was like 18, 19, almost 20-ish, when my adopted mom finally came to me while I was sitting there doing time for armed robbery. Said, well, you're not my fucking kid anyways. You're just some fucking disgusting Indian.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then left. And
so did you know that at the time? Like,
no. Like,
oh my god.
you
got adopted. Sorry.
Yeah, I got adopted before I was 1 year old.
Okay, so you were an early adopt, and then you found.
Yeah.
That's how you found out.
Yeah.
Holy macaroni, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well.
So how? Sorry.
It's just, how do I put it?
Chat, how does my image look right now? Is it any different? I like downgraded the FPS and I like upgraded the bitrate. I hope it looks okay. It looks a little weird in my
I grew up
view, though.
in a very abusive home. So it was like, for me, it was like waking up from a nightmare or a bad dream, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you found that out, that is, how did you did you get to reconnect with your family? How did that happen? Like, what happened then?
Well, first I just started to spend time talking with the elder in the institution while I was still in jail. Sorry, pardon my lungs. Then I sat back, and the elder, while I was in jail, helped me to fill out the paper forms to find out who my mom is and where my mom is and where my family and stuff is. The social worker while I was in jail came in and was like, yeah, well, you know, your mom might not want you. And I'm like, well, did you not read the papers? This is when the Indigenous women in Canada started saying we want our kids back that you stolen from us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you not read the paper? I don't think my mom doesn't want me back.
Yeah. Oh. Wow.
And I didn't even, the social worker just said, oh yeah, well, your mom thought it was, you know, best for baby that she put you in care. And I was like, okay. And then when I got to actually talk to my mom and meet her in real life, like a few years later, she's like, no, you were stolen. They stole you. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It looks good. Okay. Just
And
making
this
sure we
seems-
didn't downgrade our
Sorry?
video.
I'm sorry. I need
somehow.
to give you more time to speak.
It's just FPS, so as long as I don't dance, we should know. I don't know.
But that seems
Actually,
like
lower FPS looks cooler with dancing.
a
somehow.
common thread for Indigenous peoples, right? Whether it be through residential homes or the foster care system, children being
Yeah.
torn from their families, and like a form of basically cultural
Genocide.
genocide, right?
Yeah. Well, not just cultural,
But,
like literally,
straight on,
like,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Like the whole entire process of those programs, starting from like residential schools, 60 scoop, and what's now called as the millennial scoop, is basically just pure genocide. It was kill the Indian, save the child at whatever cost and measure.
Okay. I am so sorry to hear that, and thank you for like being here and talking to us. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
Ugh, though. So you already kind of started touching on it. I know that, you know, being pulled away from your family so early, stolen away, that's obviously going to impact like how you grow up. But did you get to like reconnect with your do I say tribe?
Yes.
Okay.
You can say tribe.
Okay, I'm just
You can
making
say
sure.
tribe or nation. It's
Nation
literally,
works as well.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And if I say anything goofy, just be like, Lumi, you're saying something goofy. But, because you know how I am. I'm a little goofy sometimes. But,
It's all good. It's all good.
but, so you got to reconnect with your mother, and did you get to reconnect with your nation and your tribe as well?
Yeah. 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 So when I got released from prison, when I was like 19, almost 20, after like while I was in there, I was like going to like sharing circles, learning how to make drums and rattles, going to the prison powwow. At that time, they didn't allow us to have our sweat lodge ceremonies in prison, very much so, and it was very guarded in the times that it was. So a sweat lodge ceremony is basically like, okay, so men are different from women. Women, like, men have 4 cycles, women have 7.
Oh shit.
So like one of them
That's,
would be like, you know, your
that's in
monthly,
Twitch
the other
chat,
one
too.
would be like giving birth and stuff like that men can't do.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that. Many would say gifts, some would say whatever, right? Like, you know what I mean? It all depends on the flip of the coin for the person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Wait, this needs
So-
to be reset, doesn't it? Yeah.
What happens is that so men have to seek
Wait, no,
outside
is it good? It is good, right?
things
It is
to
good.
purify themselves, to cleanse themselves. Whereas women is they have their moon time to clean themselves, to cleanse themselves in many different indigenous cultures. And yeah, two spirits do have more of a complex part of this, but Yeah, they were often chose to lead ceremonies and stuff. That's a whole other topic.
Mhm.
Than what we're supposed to be talking about today. Um, so with that, there would be like, okay, women used to have like just their moon lodges where they would go and, they would go through their cleansing monthly time, and, they'd have like women from like wee little to elderly, right?
Mhm.
And they would learn all the different things, plus at the same time, um, would also be using that time was they're going to, their monthly to cleanse themselves, right? For their
Mhm.
cleansing time.
That's
Um,
really cool. Cause I know,
yeah.
that's something I know a lot of. There's been a lot of shame around like menstrual cycles for like
Hmm.
people like me. I feel like, and I feel like that's really cool. And that is it like a I guess my version is it almost like self care but with community. Like this is the
Yes.
time you're cleansing and you're like in community together.
Hmm.
Oh, I
And you're surrounded from women from like babies all the way up to elder. It's woman time.
mhm.
So like you have like all that wisdom and knowledge and teaching from the elders, and like all the way down the line. And everyone like, same thing when when you first start getting your monthlies. There's a huge ceremony that the women do for you to bring you into womanhood, because they consider you to be a woman after you started your time, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
um yeah, and two spirits can go into those ceremonies. Men do not.
Mm.
um
So, I'm sorry. Do you mind? Two
sure.
spirit people. I know that two spirit people. That's from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but two spirit is like a
Mhm.
term that's obviously like an English term for a wide variety of different gender variances, different gender understandings of different nations or tribes. But
Mhm.
two spirit could be like a more feminine man or a more masculine woman, and different things as well, right? So would like
Yeah.
okay,
So
so
two spirited would be like, it could be anything from like LGBTQ plus
mhm.
to, a child was born dead and then was given a second chance to live.
Mm.
Um,
So it's
it
all.
can also, yeah,
It sounds like almost like a for some groups maybe a spiritual thing
They
as
mean
well.
different
yes,
things to different
yeah,
tribes.
yes. And so it's how do I put it? It's not just like, okay, so we look at like the medicine wheel. The medicine wheel gives us four aspects of ourselves in our sacred center: our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual. So two spirited would be in amongst any of that, and can be, or multiple, if that makes sense.
I think I'm following. I think I'm following. Okay, thank you. So two spirit people can go to these as well. And then for men, were you saying like what were they sweat ceremonies?
Sweat lodges.
Sweat
Sweat
lodges.
lodges.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let you do those in prison. You had a powwow, prison powwow.
Yeah, they let you have like a Christmas powwow.
Oh.
And it was like, at the time it was very tedious, because there's like a whack load of um security issues and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
If any inmate went to the powwow and caused any problems and caused it to be canceled, they were put into protective custody right away, because the rest of the inmates would be all over them like white on rice.
Yeah. Well, I
It
mean,
was,
you
no,
fucked it
you
up
just
for us
don't.
all.
Yeah. Because many people, when the powwows happen in the institutions, that would be for a lot of them, that would be the only time they get to see any family.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, 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 no. I have a question. Um, I knew about powwows when I was in Indiana. I had a friend that would go. What exactly is a powwow?
Well, basically, it depends on where you're from. Like the prairie natives, it originated from what my elders have told me, originated from the human zoos, where they would have to they would be forced to go to these museums, human museums, basically, like they did with the black people, our African relatives as well. Um, and it would be like a petting zoo or a show-off zoo for Europeans. And they would like, oh, you have to, look at this wild savage Indian. Oh, look at him. And our people would have to dress up like that. That's also part of a lot of where medical science came from, because they would like be measuring our skulls and trying to figure out how much pain we can handle and so forth, right?
Oh no, this is where a lot of your like racist science is gonna come from, isn't it?
Hmm. Yes, a
Oh
lot of it
boy.
comes from that. Um, then it moved into like the Wild Bill Cody show, where the only people, like there was a select few people every year that would be allowed to go to the Wild Bill Cody show to make any money. And it would all be determined upon um, the Indian official that the U.S. or Canadian government assigned to each reservation, if you got permission, because in those days you couldn't leave the reservation without permission, not even to go hunt or anything. It was literally a prison camp. And for many of our people, it still is a prisoner of war camp.
Oh, so in the way of like you're stuck on the reservation or like,
Well, in the beginning, you literally couldn't leave the res without the permission of the Indian official, which was some old white guy who literally was like, no, you can't leave the reservation. If you do, you'll be considered hostile Indians and will be hunted down.
mm,
And that's even to try and feed your family. So the point of factor of that was to force Indigenous people around North America um, to become reliant on the United States government for everything, from food, housing, all of it. And the
lay down your
allotments,
independence. Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of it each year would get smaller and smaller. And then when we would do well and start to like, gain wealth or do really well with like herds and like cattle and stuff like that, horses and whatnot, and start to get anywhere ahead in our own independence and not have to rely upon the US government or Canadian government. Um, I'm up in Canada, but my people are both from what would be known so-called Canada and United States area. Um, so what would happen is that they would find another law to shut it down and make us sell our crops or like basically almost give them away. So we didn't have any wealth and we were stuck constantly relying upon the US or Canadian government.
And
Um, Sorry, go ahead.
no, please. So you're here, you're my guest. Speak over me. Like just speak over me. This
Oh,
is explicit permission. You can stop and let me go if you want, but if you have something to say, speak the fuck over me.
No, I'm not. I don't want to be rude either. I want to be a good guest.
You're fantastic. I'm glad you're here, and I really appreciate you bringing just like your knowledge and your experiences. Um, I was, and I'm just relating it back to what little I know. So I think it does better for me to just listen. But I was thinking of how that leads into, I know there's a big association with casinos because I don't know if this is in
Yes.
Canada as well. I'm sorry, did you say you were from Canada or the United States?
Yeah, I live in Canada.
Okay,
Um,
okay. I don't know if this extends
but
over,
casinos, yeah, like
I don't know if this
the
extends over
casinos. Sorry, go ahead.
extends over to Canada, but the casinos and then also the association with just alcohol, because I feel like these substances are often like, I think it's an easy way to blame it on the people who are marginalized or the people who are struggling or suffering, that you get them kind of hooked on a substance that's used to cope or something. I'm just
Oh,
loosely.
it was first it was they wanted the fur pelts um of different animals that they could make um a profit off over in Europe. And
Okay.
then it went into like different metals like gold and stuff like that that they could make a profit off of over in Europe. Um and usually what it would be is there would be the trader like Hudson's Bay or depending where you are, whichever company, that was the trading company that worked hand in hand with both either Canada or United States government, um, would sit back and be like, "Oh, here, let's give you a shot of fire water. Yeah, 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 you'll like this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Trade me, like your height and weight in pelts, and here you
Oh.
go. You can have fire water." Um, or they'd bring like trinkets and beads that aren't worth the amount of anything, and that is pretty, yeah, alcohol. Um, so basically, that's a lot of what they did to get our people hooked on alcohol and being alcoholics. Um, we had some alcohol drinks, but there was nothing compared to the alcohol that was brought over from overseas at that time. Um, so that's where the whole um, alcoholism started, and then later on, years later, decades, year, and generations later, started with like drugs on top of it, right?
Oh.
Um, and then you would sit back and with the abuse that was happening in the residential schools, like the part of the treaties was that our children would be educated as well and receive free education because you're getting a whole shit ton of
A whole shit ton of what?
land.
Oh, is this the residential schools?
Yeah.
Oh
So the
no.
residential schools was a part of that. The tree, well, okay, the educating our children was a part of it for part of the exchange of having lands that settlers could like homestead on and live in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, although they took a shit ton more than what was agreed upon, and just literally like on the way back to like uh the way back to like parliaments, they would literally like change all the wording so it suited more favorable to the settlers getting more things than the indigenous people. And they would come and say things like, "Oh yeah, these lands are set in stone. They will never change. They will always belong to this nation."
It's not true.
No, they just kept, and then they would come back with, "Oh no, you need to sign again, as there was confusion in the past." There's no confusion.
And we still see it with the pipelines today.
Yeah, yeah, we still see it with the pipelines today.
Okay. All right. Um, Jeez. So, you
were stealing more Navajo land well into the 1920s to mine for uranium.
found out right before you were going into prison?
In the the education sounds like it was offered as a as payment when in reality it was a form of genocide, like a form of cultural genocide. And you know, in some cases, the mistreatment in the residential schools were like they weren't taking care of the children's lives.
You were adopted. You got
no, I found out while I was in prison.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So you found out while you were in prison. You started getting involved with the prison powwows.
And then like the sharing circles that we have, which is basically a circle where we sit around and we talk about different things that are bothering us or going on with in our life.
Does everyone participate in that?
For many different Indigenous people, especially while you're in prison, yeah, any chance to get out of your jail, out of your cell is more than welcomed.
Oh yeah, but prisons are gendered, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
If you're not in prison, would that be a thing that is sectioned off based on gender?
My grandfather went to one, and a lot of my relatives went, and they adopted English names for 3 generations.
Or people together?
No, it would be people together.
Wait, you just
like
get together and talk about your problems together?
Yeah.
What the
As
fuck?
a community.
That's poggers. That's awesome.
And in the free world, so to speak, there are sharing circles, and there are some that are like women only, some that are men only, and then there's some that just anyone can go to.
Wow.
And basically we talk about different things, like if we're having issues or problems, or we can share our stories of hope. All different kinds of things. Is basically a time to be able to talk, and you're the only person that's talking, because most of them will carry, like, some use like different things, like a rock, or a lot use like an eagle feather. And that's passed around, and only that person that has it is the one that's speaking. Everyone else just shuts up and listens. There's no argument to it. There's no nothing. Everyone's very much respectful of each other when we're talking. All of that.
Holy shit, I feel like so many people could learn from this. This just sounds like a very healthy community practice.
It is. It literally is. Like, I mean, some of us are trying to figure out a good way to be able to do that online. Although there's a little bit more difficulty in trying to do it, like, per se, online, as compared to, like, in person.
Yeah. That's really cool. I imagine it is a little more difficult because you don't have that physical thing that you're passing, and it's a little different online, for sure.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of little different barriers. I hate that. I think video helps, but it's hard for me, as you can tell, like in just voice call. I struggle because I can't see your face. I can't tell if you're contemplating. I can't. So I could definitely.
I'm sorry.
No. Please don't be sorry. Thank you for being here. But that's really cool. So, when you're in prison, you got to do those things. And then when you got out, did you get to connect more? Where are you at now? How are things now? What brings you here?
Well, let's see. When I got out, I started to continue to get involved in my people's culture. Although I was still getting drunk and high at the time. It wasn't until I was like 22 when I finally quit drinking.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It's been like 36 years because I'm almost 50 now.
Holy pog!
I'm an old fucker. And it's been like 33 plus years that I've been living, practicing, and learning my people's way of life.
So I imagine was it easy?
No, I'm not a boomer. I'm cool as fuck. as anyone that's been in my community.
Okay, listen. If Lost Sioux is a boomer, Lost Sioux is the coolest boomer I have ever known, okay? So back off or I will become a boomer defender. But yeah, no, definitely not a boomer. Boomer is a cringe mindset. Oh my gosh. Hey, Lumi is a cool boomer too. Hey! Oh my gosh. But was it pretty easy to get involved after that? Did you have barriers to getting involved? Did you move and live on a reservation? Did you visit reservations? Did you create community space outside of that? What were some of the challenges?
All of the above. The biggest, like when I first started learning, I started like because after I got out of jail, I quickly went and moved myself over to Vancouver, British Columbia, from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Because Winnipeg's like an extremely racist city. And I always say this: if you're an indigenous person in Winnipeg, Manitoba, you have a 50% chance of not getting a job. If you're an indigenous person with a criminal record, just keep being a criminal because you'll never get a job.
Oh. Yeah,
Or,
that's gonna probably cement you down into like a permanent underclass, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's
And the cops do not leave you alone. They don't give a shit whether you've changed, whether you stopped committing crime. They don't give a shit about anything. It's like, no, you once a criminal, always a criminal. And I just got sick and tired of, I would walk like half a block from my mom's house to the corner store, and I'd be stopped 4 times by cops, twice going there and twice coming back. And it would always be, where's your guns at? Where's your weapons? Where's your knives? Where's your bombs at? Who's on the blacklist? We know you know what's going on. Constant harassment, and then illegal searches into my property too. Like, so they would like look through the grocery bags and shit. I'd be like, what the fuck?
A permanent underclass.
That's a
rich
good
gang.
way to
Yeah.
make friends with the community you're supposed to be serving.
No, they don't give a shit about making friends with Indigenous people.
Yeah. Clearly. Because that's not how you do it. I am sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't catch this. Did you end up moving, like, did you move with a community or
No,
visiting or
when I moved, when I got out, I moved to Vancouver, British Columbia, and I just fully moved. Then I started going to Alcoholics and Anonymous meetings and NA meetings, and they helped me to get through all the bullshit in my head to my heart. Many people may have different, how do I put it? Many people might have different feelings or thoughts or opinions on Alcoholics Anonymous programs, like 12-step programs. But for me, it helped me to get through all the bullshit that was, how do I put it, conditioned and forced into my headspace. Like, before I found out I was Native, I thought, because I was taken as a baby and sold to white people who happened to actually be Icelandic, I thought I was a Viking growing up as a child.
Oh, yeah. And so that's one of the reasons I'm very interested, or like, I feel like there are a lot of people who feel disconnected from their culture. So it's always interesting, especially, I feel like this has to be particularly difficult if you were thrown through that system. It's so many awful systems that I want to, like, I keep thinking of like systems that just grind people out and do awful things to people. And then, you managed to make it through and go to AA, find something in that and reconnect with your culture. And so I'm just so
Yeah,
wow.
like there are like AA or NA might not be 12-step programs might not necessarily be for everyone,
Yeah.
but they do have some advantages of helping you personally.
Mhm.
Um, and then as I was going to meetings, I started meeting more and more Indigenous people in those meetings, which gave me, yeah, exactly, whatever works for you, right?
Yeah. Different
Um,
things for different
yeah,
people.
yeah, whatever works for you. Um, then I started meeting different Indigenous people, and then I ran into someone who was a Cree pipe carrier or pipe keeper, um, and that was running sweats in Vancouver, on the North Shore in Vancouver, and I started going to Cree sweats
Oh
with
my
them.
god.
As I was figuring out and learning who
That is some strong tea.
I am and what it actually means to be an Indigenous person. I didn't get the opportunity um, to have that growing up, to know what it actually means, like, and to know my culture and my people and my language and stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, and I got lucky, Jalen. The people, like, there were very many
Yeah,
judgmental
yeah,
white
yeah.
Christians in AA and NA. I'm not gonna lie, but I got
Oh,
lucky
that's
because I
right.
got to
Yeah.
hang out with.
That is one thing about it that like I sympathize with the idea that whatever helps you get, to the place that you need to be to live the life, to be the person that you want to be, like that's, it's good. Yeah, like Lost Sioux said, some people like AA and A are not for them, and that's cool too. But um the one issue that I think that it does have, and I have talked to a lot of people that have been in AA, is that especially in areas that tend to be mostly Christian, most of the people in a group will be Christian, and there'll be kind of an enforced, like, high, because okay, so part of AA, if you don't know, is about your higher power. Now that doesn't have to be religious. Like some people say that your higher power, I guess, could be like your belief in humanity, your belief in yourself, your, dreams, your aspirations. Like there's different ways to see that maybe. But if most of the people there are like hearing higher power and they're like, yes, God, Jesus, whatever, then there's gonna be a tendency to like sort of push people, towards that. And I don't have to tell you what Christianity's like take is on evangelizing, right? A lot of Christian sects like to spread that belief. So I can imagine for somebody who's not of that, especially like a conservative evangelical persuasion, that it might be hard to there might be like pressure. Um,
A lot of the
Hi,
bikers
Sean.
or retired bikers in the Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step programs. Um, so there wasn't like it's literally for me it was like, okay, so now I'm hanging out with bikers that I was already hanging out with prior, but these ones are all like, um, these ones are all like open-minded and stuff, and like they're not so judgmental and shit. Um, hey Marcus, good to see you. Um, so then we sat back and it's like, okay, so as I got to do that, and they just allowed me to, like, you know what I mean, like they gave me the room to be able to learn and grow, right?
That's so important.
And gave me all the support I needed. um and then as I started to learn in my culture and stuff, um and start going to ceremonies and that, like first it was, going to sharing circles. Then when I got out, it was like going to AA and NA meetings. And even then, I was like hooking up with a local Métis nation within the area that I was living in, because I didn't know where I stood. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know if I was status or Métis. Um, Being that my dad is part white, so I didn't know what I would be classified as. Um, so I was like, okay, well, let me, hang out with these Métis people, um, and start to learn a bit more about my culture, right? Métis,
Métis is half Indigenous, half white in Canada. Am I right in that?
yeah,
I might be
yeah,
really
yeah.
misinformed.
Basically, it also depends on who you ask, right? Some of them say like it has to be Korean French mixture.
Mm.
It's a distinct peoples that is a nation that grew out of the two cultures or two peoples mixing.
Hmm.
We'll just say it that way. Um, we have to remember no TOS. Um,
Having fun times. Hey.
this is a wholesome stream, you all.
It's
I'm just kidding.
extremely wholesome. It's heckin' wholesome.
Not in my Christian space. Okay, just kidding, just kidding.
Some might even say snug. Some
So-
We're chill here.
some might say that.
Yeah. Um, so there's like the French Cree mix, then there's like other different tribes, and with like Scottish and Irish as well. Because the French, Scottish, and Irish um actually got along much better with the indigenous population than the English did.
Got the YouTube snugs. We need to make
The
snug
French
Alf.
didn't try and do a whole lot of stuff. They just
Snug
wanted
Alf.
to trade routes
Alf can be snug.
because they wanted the furs. They weren't interested in lands. They weren't interested in like a whole lot of different stuff. They were just interested in the furs. The Scottish and the Irish came from, generations of being ruled over by England. So there was always that connection with the Scottish and Irish in Canada or United States with the Indigenous people, because similar things, not necessarily exactly the same, but very much some similarities in the oppression and genocide acts and stuff that England had went out of its way to do. Um,
So,
although don't mistake, the French were just as fucked up and greedy as
Alf
the
is
English
better than
were.
Garfield.
They just
Objectively.
weren't about taking lands as like the English was.
so it was just colonialism rather than settler colonialism?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, lots of history.
What? And that's fantastic. You are breaking my world open right now. So you found out, you found out you were Sioux through you said it's I don't know the word for this, matrilineal or matriarchal
Yeah,
lineal or whatever the F.
matrilineal, meaning that our genes come from our mother gens
Mm-hmm.
rather than the father gens. So like patriarchy and colonialism goes through, whatever your father is what you are, and that's what
Hey,
you
Max,
mostly
what's up?
focus on. Whereas indigenous population, it was from your mother.
And that makes a lot of.
Oh, interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking that makes sense because like the mother births the child.
I mean, yeah, this is, something to remember, that especially in Canada, there was like a real conflict between the French and the English. There was an established French colony, Acadia, I believe it's in English, yeah, Acadia, and this is where the term Cajun comes from, like of Acadian origin, got shortened to Cajun. So right, the people in Louisiana, some of them can trace their lineage back to Acadie, to Acadia, and yeah, they were forcefully deported. Some of them snuck back up there. Nonetheless, some of them got dropped off along the East Coast in various places. There is a lot of history here, right? And yeah, the English and the French were enemies. That's true.
Child and like
The French and Irish getting along better with the Indigenous people than the English. than they did with the English. Yeah.
But then I guess that's not necessarily either. But I know that in genetics testing, I think it is.
Difference between French and English: the English invade territories over oil. The French do it over golf courses.
Is the mother's like genes you end up getting from your genetics testing? Even I know that's completely separate.
I'm
and
gonna keep you. I love you. You're good.
Yeah, well, no, like
forever,
it's
and then I accidentally
like
threw off a ledge.
we knew that.
Is this what it feels like every time communist invading radicals comes on?
Before first contact, that a lot of your genes you carry and stuff came from your mom. So this is where
yeah, we're just taking a day to like not watch debate bro content and to just like listen to a conversation between two streamers talking about their lived experiences, right?
it was okay. Your mother, the mother genes is where you get your
It's
lineage
good for a
from,
change
where
after
your tribe,
after all the fucking RGR drama.
where your tribe and who you belong to, the community that you belong to comes from. Whereas Europeans had the whatever your father comes from, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because it seems like there's do you run into misunderstanding where people hear that you're matrilineal and then they're like, oh, so you have like a matriarchal society, the women are in charge?
Yeah.
Where that's not the case. You're like, no, it's yes, we recognize differences, but everyone contributes and we accept gender variation as well. I mean, of course, varying nation to nation, tribe to tribe, but
like literally prior to first contact in the residential schools, it wasn't matriarchal and it wasn't patriarchal. It was something completely different. And like I said, the closest word in English that we can come up that anywhere resembles even the slightest little bit is egalitarian. Like we listened to the warnings of the women, and the women had a very much strong say in whether or not the tribe went to war when we had differences with other tribes, because it was the women that would be like the loss of a son, the loss of a husband, the loss of a brother, the loss of, a father. So women had that role, right? As life givers, right? Because men don't have per se, without scientific help, have the ability to bring life into the world. We all, like, you know what I mean? Whereas women do, right?
It's interesting because I like that perspective as compared to like, I feel like our perspective on it is like, well, women are just emotional and it's a very like misogynistic, degrading thing. Whereas it's like, there's a totally different perspective there. And so I was wondering, like, you grew up, you were adopted around one and you went through, you said an Icelandic family was your like adoptive family. Did they like, was it a shift? Did you have to like, in terms of gender, I assume as well, like understanding how like gender in the was the gender in the Icelandic family you were adopted into different from like gender understandings in an Indigenous
you if you were gay or two-spirited in any way, shape, or form, you were not, that was not an acceptable thing. You were either straight or straight.
You were either straight or straight. That sounds about right, honestly.
Literally, I remember as a kid, if I would cry, I would be beaten for crying. Let me give you something to fucking cry about. Men don't cry. Only women cry.
So
lots of different things.
What are some of the like differences that you noticed the crying was different?
That is
to
badass.
me, like it's shocking to hear about the sharing circles where everyone's like talking about their struggles. What are some of those shifts? Did you have to unlearn things in terms of gender when you went like to connect
when
with your culture?
yeah, to learn a lot of different things. Um, One of them was like, you can't talk about any of your emotions or anything. Everything has to be kept up, bottled inside. Don't say a fucking word. Which led to a lot of violence when I was a kid,
Mm,
and violent behavior.
yeah.
And then um, it left me also questioning my sexuality for a long time. Um, because, like, how do I put this? So I grew up being raped, beaten, and tortured um, at a very young age.
Yeah.
Like my adopted sister started raping me when I was like 7, 8 years old. I started getting beaten and tortured, like stripped from all my clothing and tossed into a closet and locked in the closet for hours every day from the age of 4. Um, all because
Yeah,
I was the
so
dirty
just
savage.
repeating, content warning. This is a discussion of abuse and, CSA, and this is tough. This, if this affects you in a negative way, I don't blame you for if you have to dip. I understand that, and please take care of yourself because I don't want, this isn't meant to traumatize. We're watching this as something positive of people dealing with life's trauma and trying to move forward, right? Sometimes even though the I even thought the hurting in sex would pop in my head because I had 0 outlets and decompression. She was probably also probably she was probably being abused.
Indian.
I am so sorry to hear that. And I could see how that has, like, first off, I'm sure from my understanding in those sorts of situations, masculinity and how your masculinity is treated in that moment is also a part of that abuse. Was that the case? And
Yeah.
that had
Yeah.
definitely left impacts on you of a lot of unlearning and healing to do.
Yeah, and I'm still working on it.
Oh, I imagine. That's a lot.
This stuff just doesn't go away. It's not like a miracle cure. It's a lifetime process of healing.
That makes sense. And so how did that impact your sexuality? I'm sorry, you were going to get into that, I think.
Well, I didn't know whether I was gay or straight. I didn't know any of it. Like, when I was in jail, I would have relationships with other inmates. When I was out in the outside, I would have relationships with women. So it was like really confusing for me. And I had no idea who the fuck I was in that aspect at all.
Understand.
Today I've just come to the acknowledgement and understanding that I decide who I am.
Brave, yeah.
No one else has the right to decide and make decisions about who I am, what box I do or do not check in myself into, which is why I say like Sioux for pronouns, because no one tells me my sexuality. No one makes me a sexuality that I may or may not want to be.
I am so glad you brought that up because I'm going to be honest. When I asked you your pronouns, what pronouns you would like me to put in the interview, the first time I interviewed you, I'm non-binary and people meme on our pronouns a lot, but I thought that doesn't seem like Lost Sioux. I don't feel like Lost Sioux is being disrespectful.
No.
No. I definitely, I think because of how I've been treated, I was shocked and I was like, oh, And then I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to stick it out and I'm going to try to learn, because I could be totally misunderstanding this. But I wanted to say it was actually really inspiring, because I got in a conversation about neopronouns and different people in regards to neopronouns. And I actually kept thinking back to how you use Sioux pronouns. And I thought, well, that continuously brings it back, because you're not memeing on me. Like, we get people who are like, oh, I use, you know, they'll use like,
I'm an attack helicopter and whatever, right? Yeah.
Yes, the helicopter meme. And I'm like, but that is always the same joke. There's no thought in it. I'm like, you feel like you're expressing a part of your identity. And and I was thinking that through as I was thinking about, well, because there was a bit of a challenge in a conversation I was in on neopronouns, where someone was like, well, I don't think they're gonna, my understanding was they felt like they're not gonna get big, like it's gonna be a whole mess. And I'm like, well, I think neopronouns could be really creative. And we're seeing, like, in the English language, it's so gendered, and people hear what to me is just like my sex assigned at birth, my gender assigned at birth, over and over and over again, and that's what they bring up constantly. But when I talk about you, when I use Sioux pronouns, which I'm sorry, I do occasionally use he, him, but I've worked on using Sioux pronouns, and it continuously brings it back to what I assume is an important aspect of your identity. And that, like, really was inspiring to me, that we don't have to focus on the sexuality or gender. It's something that's deeply meaningful.
Okay,
to you.
so this
and
is
so
what
that,
is,
like,
I think what's being said is basically like that, like, okay, so we normally think of pronouns as being related to gender, right? And so then even in, you know, just like the he, she, you know, we add they to that, or we add a neopronoun, right? That doesn't, you know, that doesn't imply, you know, anything that's established, right? Doesn't imply any established social construction, right? So the thing here is that the idea of referencing someone's gender within a pronoun is in and of itself a social construction, right? And, you know, if what you want to do is reference something meaningful, because I guess that's why it's put in there, but that it won, like, you know, that it was treated as being, you know, meaningful, right? Then, like, there are other things which are just as meaningful, if not more, right? So
it was shocking to me, but I have to say, like, it's really been inspiring to me and made me think a lot deeper. And so thank you for that.
See, what I usually find is, like, a lot of spaces I go into, I'm demanded to have a pronoun. And it's forced on me to be in this little box.
Yeah.
I don't fit in boxes.
That's fair.
And two-spirited people don't necessarily fit into boxes either. We don't have, like, the boxes as European way of doing things or thinking is, right? Where it's all on a spectrum. So 1 minute you can be in this box, next minute you can be in that box. It's literally all on a spectrum. Or you can be in all the boxes at all time, whenever you want, right? Like, it's not forced into one thing. And it's usually always something that's, and it's usually always something that is...
Even traditional pronouns do not necessarily correspond with gender, e.g. for he, him, lesbians.
To do with your to do with the physical, right? Like sexual. But it's not anything to do with sexuality. Like, okay, your sexual preference is your sexual preference, and it doesn't matter what box you fit into.
People are just,
do you know what I mean?
They're
like,
complex, and they love each other differently, and it looks different, and it's fluid, and only that person knows that. So why are we obsessing over these boxes? Why
exactly?
Why she, her,
it's
he, him pronouns?
In a lot of ways, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, so colonization was to remove the indigenous people of that land, everything about them, and force something onto them that doesn't fit. And a lot of the times, you'll hear me say it, and those of you who have been in my chat many different times throughout the little over a year that I've been streaming have heard me say it many different times. Be very careful in what you're doing, because if it's just another form of colonization with just different wordings, that's not good either. You can't force people to fit inside of a box and keep them stuck in a box. That's the same thing we see when we deal with cops, right? Or the federal government, or you know, churches and stuff. You have to fit into this box, and if you don't fit in, then you're outcast.
Yeah.
Well, what are we doing? Because there's tons of different people who don't necessarily fit in those boxes all the
Forced
time,
integration of Indigenous
that we're tossing out the
people,
fucking
so
down the
evil.
road. That could very well be somebody that's maybe somebody that becomes a very important and integral part of the movement. But because they don't fit into a box, you're going to toss them down the fucking road? Really?
Yeah. It's the normal
Yeah,
box.
or just that. Yeah.
I
right,
think
like-
it fits race, sexuality, gender.
Mhm.
But even I feel like this could definitely connect with neurodiverse people too. And the way it's all
Right.
of this, like, here's your normal boxes, and anyone outside
Yeah.
of the normal box is a freak. Something's wrong
Yep.
with them. And it's like you are
Yep.
missing the beauty in humanity. And like,
Yep.
I think it gets fear mongered around like, well, this person's sick or they're dangerous, they're a criminal. And like
Yeah.
sometimes people are sick, like physically sick, or an extension of that, have some mental illness. But it's like we respond to that in that way you're talking about, like tossing people out. And it's like you could be missing something beautiful.
Yep.
I think, yeah. No, I'm
and-
following you.
And this is where it's like, okay, so even people that have like mental illnesses have worth and value within the
yes.
community.
Oh, yes. Well, I just see it as like, we wouldn't discard someone because they've got a broken arm. Like, pull your shit
Right?
together. Like,
Right?
sometimes your brain, it's a little sick, and that's okay. But we stigmatize that so intensely, and it's like, no, when someone is sick, what do we do? When someone is injured, what do we do? We take care of them, or we would benefit from doing so, and they would benefit from doing so. Why do we have to be awful?
Mm-hmm.
But we are
Yeah.
just so discarding. Yeah.
Good choice
That's
of
a good
video.
And
quote
this
for
is-
Thank you.
Jalen.
This is actually suggested to me, I believe. Wait, I don't remember. It was Joni or Vamps that just who? Wait, I think maybe Joni suggested this video originally.
Yeah, and like these.
I think.
The sad part is that I find some communities, who are supposed to be leftist and non-binary or like LGBTQ plus, that are very judgmental. You have to sit and fit in this box. If you don't fit this box, get the fuck out. You're not part of our community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why are you forcing people to fit into a box? Isn't that the same thing as colonization that we've been fighting against?
So how do you avoid those boxes? Do you just refuse to, like, how do you
Be labeled. I refuse to be labeled.
That's fair.
I refuse, like, my pronoun, Sioux.
Mm-hmm.
Don't label me. If you're gonna label me, then label me my tribe.
I respect that. I think I relate to that in my like they them pronouns has been hugely liberatory for me, because when someone tries to put me in a box, I go no, stop. So that makes sense. When you've been working on decolonization, like your own personal decolonization for a long while, what are some things you've learned? Like if someone else were trying to undergo that own personal like decolonization, what would you recommend to them? What would be your tips?
First things first, you have to get honest with yourself. And you have to humble yourself. And be open and willing to learn. Because everything that you've learned up to that point is garbage. And it's toxic and not good for you. So when you're decolonizing your mindset and stuff, and healing, you literally have to humble yourself, because most people will come in and they'll act like they're a fucking bookworm genius. Look at me and my mind-boggling fucking uber geniusness. Bow down to my greatness.
Ego.
No. Yeah. You have to remove your ego. You have to humble yourself.
Yeah.
Some people
And-
so desperately
yeah.
just want to be right that they can't see what's right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you on that.
And like you'll see it from time to time, right? You'll see it from time to time. You'll run into people that literally will try and act like it's they're the ultimate brain genius. And even in the left, you'll see them like go, oh well, you have to read Marx, you have to read Engels, you have to read this, that, in order to be a leftist. And you're going, well, wait a minute. How does a book tell me what I've already experienced and going through in my life? That's for somebody who doesn't know what it's all about, to get a better understanding of what is going on, compared to somebody who's lived it
Oh, I got
and
you.
knows full well what their oppression is and stuff, right?
Do you think there is... So, I agree with you in that I feel like you cannot be claiming, oh, you have to read this or you have to read that. It's goofy. Do you find
Yeah.
value in some of that? Like some level of value in some theory?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that some theories are great as an opener, but that's like a
feel you.
that's starter text to us Indigenous people,
And yeah,
where
there's such a...
all of it came from.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't myopically focus on something and hold that as the bar. There's so much out there to learn. And I think
Yeah.
people,
The
they
theory
want to
lords,
be
yeah.
sure in themselves. They want to be the hero of the story. They want to be the person that knows what's going on. But the reality is, we're all here on equal footing. Does that kind of
Yeah.
encapsulate what you're getting?
Yeah, we're all here on equal footing. No one's better than, no one's less than. We're all the same. We're all human beings. When we cut ourselves, we all bleed red.
Unless you're
There is
unless you bleed
literally
theory.
no difference.
Unless you bleed theory.
We may have different shades of color of skin. We may have different hair
Yeah,
color,
there's
different
some
eye
gatekeeping.
colors, but that doesn't mean shit. That's just the outer shell of our body. We don't get to pick and choose that. But we do get to pick and choose how we are as human beings. If that makes sense.
I think it makes sense. I'm following you.
I literally bleed Karl Marx. Yes. Yes.
I'm thinking. I don't get to talk to you often. Hopefully, I'll get to catch up with you more often. But
So,
I have this question written out. I brainstormed a few
Mhm.
questions for you, and I don't even know
Yay.
if this fits you. Or so take this question as you will, respond to it as you
Mhm.
will. And I recognize
Okay.
this might be a goofy ass question. But what
you know
does it-
what? Before you get into that, I want to tell you this is something that I state in my streams all the time. There is no such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that's not asked.
That's fair. I've heard there's no such thing as a dumb question. I like that follow up. The only question like that is one you didn't ask.
Mhm.
So I was gonna ask you, what does it mean to you to be a man? And then I was gonna ask you what identities are important to you. And this was gonna be a follow up into the question about your pronouns, of course, Sioux, because I recognize that your tribe identity is very important to you. And I saw that and I started understanding that, no, you're not just mocking me. You're that is your identity and you're expressing that to me as I express my pronouns to you. But what does it mean to you to be a man? Do you associate with being a man? And yeah,
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's just that fluid for me. It's a spectrum. There's some days that I associate with being a man, and there's some days I don't.
that is very fair.
I don't, like I said, I don't, to me it's a spectrum. It's not I'm stuck in this box and that's where I'm going to stay and I will be there till I die. No, it's a spectrum.
Absolutely. And I
Some
assume
days I feel like a woman and I'm literally, you can like listen, you can see me if you walk past my apartment, you'll hear me playing fucking women's songs or what they classify as women's songs,
yeah,
right?
what our society genders as a womanly song. But you're just like,
Yeah.
if this is femininity, fuck it, I'm feeling it.
Right? It's like, but see,
I
that's the
relate to
thing.
that.
We both have male and female aspects of ourselves within inside of ourselves.
Yeah. And again, I think that comes back to the boxes of when you shuffle yourself into one of those boxes, you just pretty much like, you cut off a piece of yourself. For a lot of us, you're just having to cut off a piece of yourself or deny it or hide it or like push it down or whatever, right?
Yep. And we stuff it down, we don't honor it, we don't respect it, we don't acknowledge it, and we do
Oh, that's a dynamic, Mike?
ourselves more harm by doing so.
So when you feel like a man, what are some of those good things about that? And are there
I hear
any
what you're
bad parts
saying.
of that?
Well,
my
there's
God.
good and bad in everything.
Audio is such a problem for me. Like, I swear to God, like, this mic isn't that bad. I'm not EQing it at all, because when I have EQ'd it, I think I fucked it up. I think I screwed it up.
Of course, yeah.
Like, I never know. I'm just always kind of like, well, this sounds good, but no, it's a little tinny, and then, like, I don't know. It's so hard to get.
Fair.
When I feel like a man, I still from time to time can get quite, how do they put it? Toxic masculinity, where, I gotta be like, I'm uber strong. Fuck. It's a part that it's like,
yeah, they're S's,
how do I
yeah.
put it? My relative, and dear friend,
You need it closer to your mouth. Oh, me in particular, or just like audio isn't that bad. I know, but I know it could be better. Like, I want to do video essays, and audio is super important for that.
Silver Spook says it greatly. Like he's part
No worries.
stormtrooper, and it's going to take the rest of his life to remove that stormtrooper part out of him.
Wait, is this a nerd
Well,
reference?
for me, it's like that I'm part Zerg, and like it's gonna, like, I don't really know if I entirely want to remove the Zerg from me, because like it's just like,
What are stormtroopers from
Yeah.
again? Is this Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, I love
yeah.
this! Wait, are the stormtroopers the ones that can't aim? This is all I know about
Yeah,
stormtroopers.
yeah, the stormtroopers.
I'm an infested Terran, chat.
Yeah, the stormtroopers. Yeah.
That's incredible.
But it's like, because we're so conditioned and brainwashed, if you will, into this colonial mindset,
Part Protoss, I can't help but turret rush.
that it's basically just like a stormtrooper, because that's what they want everyone to be. You have no
What
identity
is it called, like a 3-pool when you do the Zerg rush? The
outside of
classic Zerg
what
rush? Or is it 5-pool?
they give you, and you have to stay in that box.
I'm actually not good at StarCraft. Like,
There's no freedom to move
decidedly
around.
not good.
There's no freedom to redefine yourself or define yourself at any given moment that you choose. You're stuck.
I've noticed that about specifically fashion in idealized or like what is pushed as like maybe you would say colonized masculinity is it's so based on restriction and
5-pool, because you start with 4 workers.
I'm
I
like,
think.
Same thing
try-
with colonized. I'm probably going to get in hell for this one. Same thing with colonized femininity. Because there are so
I think
many.
sorry, go ahead.
Because like what I find is like I find a lot of feminists still see themselves through the lens of a man, and trying to equal up to that, when in no way, shape, or form are women equal to a man at all.
So basically,
that
they're
aspect.
assimilating into. Would you say they're assimilating into toxic masculinity and trying to be a man in the way that men are to prove
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
too? No, I see that entirely. I'm there with you. I do think that there's a type of femininity that also tries to continue to play that role. Like I've tried playing the feminine role before because I thought that's what I had to do. But I've
Yeah.
also
What's your sister style?
noticed, yeah, women will sometimes
And some would
as
say-
a part of, I'd argue like it's maybe a second wave feminist or even like a more liberal feminist that is not
Yeah,
challenging
yeah.
other hierarchies. That I absolutely hear you on that.
And if you don't, and if you do challenge it, you're ousted. Immediately, you're ousted. The moment that you challenge it, you're ousted. You're done.
I hate Zerg players.
Yeah.
They will go out of their way to like literally attack you in any way, shape, or form.
You lose respect. Misogyny is going to be upon you, whether you're a man,
Well, wait,
a woman,
of course you do. You're Protoss.
non-binary
Of course
person.
you do.
Mm-hmm.
You've showed you're an individual. You've got a level of what would probably be deemed femininity, and it's just misogyny. Ooh.
And so when we're looking at these things, it's like, okay, so women are women in their own right.
Since the
They don't have
first StarCraft
to
expansion.
try and equal up to a man
Wait, is that StarCraft 1 or like?
at all. There's no reason for it. You're a woman. Just be you. There's so many, a plethora of beautiful things that come with being a woman. Enjoy that. Learn to live it and love with it. And accept yourself for
It
who
is
you are.
StarCraft 1.
This is
Is your...
Was it multiplayer?
Sorry, what?
No, please finish.
So, like, if you're a man, then learn to be and love yourself as a man, if that's what you choose to be, right? If you're LGBTQ plus or transgendered, like,
Oh, the expansion is
Be
like
who
a
you
whole
are.
new
Learn to
game.
love
A
yourself.
whole new game.
stop trying to measure up to somebody else's idea of a measurement. Measure up in your own self and be comfortable in your own skin.
I hear you 100%. I think I got antsy because I feel like I'm totally where you are.
Yeah.
And I think understanding how, I know two-spirit identities are so ranged from nation to nation, but it seems like, just talking to you, like, I really relate to what you're saying when you talk about how there's masculinity and femininity in everyone.
StarCraft has always
and I
had
think
multiplayer?
Some people, sure,
thought
maybe they
StarCraft
just
1
have
was, like,
straight up
way
femininity
back,
or straight up
like, in the
masculinity.
90s
I'm
or
non-binary.
something.
I don't relate to that at all. And sometimes I feel shame because
Before
I
the
feel like I
internet.
have to defend my non-binariness by like proving
Why?
my masculinity. But then it's like, no.
Why?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
You are who you are. No one has the right to tell you who you are and who you aren't. Only you do. And you have every right to define your reality, because reality begins within.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to chill on the wholesomeness or you're gonna make me cry. Tone
This
your
is-
wholesomeness down.
This is literally Indigenous way of thinking.
They were able to fit in.
And there
multiplayer
are
somehow,
some
even though it was
variances.
the 90s?
For different tribes have some different variances,
Non-binary.
but there are a fundamental truth in that fact and facet. Reality begins within. So you are the master of your reality, not anyone else. And anyone that tries to force another reality on you is doing a form of colonization.
And we need to fight that rather than give in. And I understand like there are going to be places where you might suffer a lot of loss because of that. And I'm not yeah.
For standing up
Sorry.
for.
I mean,
yeah,
if you lose someone over it, then were they really your
for standing up to the reality that someone else is trying to impose on you. Yeah. Especially if they feel entitled to doing that.
friend or anything to begin with?
Nah, I said bye to my mom. Bye, Mom.
right? Like,
Not,
you know what I
not
mean?
worth
Like, if
it.
they're not willing to stand by who you are and who you
They're not willing to let you assert your autonomy over yourself, then yeah, fuck them.
decide and choose to be, then are
I
they
mean,
your
not fuck them. I mean, I don't. Sorry, I don't have any like. But like, you don't need them in your life, right?
friends? No, they're not. Your friend will stand by you no matter what and accept you for who and what you are.
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Whatever you
But the thing is, that's what they're trying to do to me. It's like it's my reality to begin with, and it's so hard to remember that when you're used to being forced to not take up any space. And I was raised in that environment where there was nothing of mine that was mine. Like everything was kind of my parents, and there was no me. Like even, you know, when my parents would have people over, we were just there as like conversation pieces, right? We were supposed to be there to, you know, if they wanted to show us off on some way, or, you know, ask us stuff in front of the guests, but like, you know, not make too much noise, not do anything disturbing, not, you know, like play, right? You know, it's just such a weird thing when you've never been taught that you are autonomous, to be able to assert that when other people feel entitled to take that over from you,
decide.
Yeah.
as if you're a pet
Like indigenous
or
childhood
a piece of property.
rearing was literally parents and the community watching the child and allowing the
Punished from stealing yourself from them.
child the freedom to grow to be whoever they chose to be. And that was between them and, well, we say creator. Some people may say God. Because we believe children are gifts to us. They're not, we don't own them. They're gifts given to us to look after and try to raise as best as possible and help them along their path in whatever creator put them on earth to do and to become.
Okay, so I would never wish this upon you, but I need you to go talk to my mom. She's got some real stuff to
Oh my
learn.
god.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Okay, okay. Sue, how long have I been keeping you?
I have no issues with time.
Okay, okay, just making sure. In chat,
Yeah.
make sure to get your questions in.
The only thing I may from time to time ask for a moment to get up to get some more drinks for myself.
That is entirely, that's, go for it. Do your thing. I think actually, I do want to get into questions from our chat.
Yes.
I saw a few people enter questions into the chat queue. So chat, if you have questions, please get them in. I'm gonna start pulling them up. So this is from 13 minutes ago. Daclus, I might be mispronouncing their name. They said, do you have any advice for a city NDN, I assume Indian, who wants to connect with their tribe? I'm Lakota, but states away from the plains.
Okay, so many different cities have what they call Indian friendship centers or Native friendship centers that you can go to and like start working on reconnecting that way, or have what they consider to be like trade, like old trade stores or Indian trade
Lumi's mom is a piece of shit. She calls them it unironically.
good stores, stuff like that, in cities that you can like go to and like usually come across an indigenous person
Or like also, yeah.
that would be able to help you to reconnect. Because a lot of our stuff isn't necessarily always, yeah, like trading posts, yeah. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Lost Sioux.
Yes, we are lucky to have a lovely guest on our stream today. Welcome in, Zella. So is that...
So that's basically like, that's the easiest way. Just go in there as like you want to reconnect. You don't like, not like you're trying to get like land in your own house, and you know what I mean? Like you don't want to do that because there's far too many people that abuse that.
Mm.
There's like a whole thing like with sorry to phrase it this way, but white women marrying Native men, popping out a couple of kids, and then kicking the Native man out of the home and off the land, and then still staying there and having free land and free home. It was like this popular thing to do, and then running in talking all kinds of shit in council meetings or community meetings because they have kids that are Native, so therefore they have the right to enforce whiteness and white ideology on the reservation.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's a thing.
We do have some toxic femininity. That is a thing.
and
Got some white supremacy in here. Even if you're a lady, you can do that shit.
And then, as well as there's people that come that are like, oh, I'm like 1/16th Cherokee. My great 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 grandmother was a Cherokee princess. Well, that far back in the lineage, there was no such thing as a Cherokee princess. That's a European princess shit. Not an Indigenous thing, and it didn't become anything to do with anything outside of powwow. After powwows became a more of a thing of how to like switch something that was started off as a racist act of human zoos and shows, and then went to like shows that would entertain Europeans all around the world. Then to Indigenous people taking that back and starting powwow and using it for the option to be able to reconnect with people and reconnect with community and our way of life.
So powwows are just like Indigenous people reclaimed it. They took it and spun it for themselves. Am I understanding that?
Yeah. Like some of my cousins that are like in their 70s now remember when their dad used to dress them up in powwow outfits and take them to some of the white tourist places and have them dancing in order to make money and get the tourists to give money in order for them to be able to buy supplies that they needed.
I'm so glad that got reclaimed and taken back.
Mm-hmm.
And turned into something good and wholesome and good. Though I do have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading Braiding Sweetgrass. Do you have any opinions on that book or no?
I don't think I've read that one.
Okay, I've been reading. I had a friend recommend it to me, and I've been reading it. And
Anyone
I
out there read this?
section. I
it's
forget
called
what
Braiding
the nation
Sweetgrass.
was. I know they talk about. I might not do well on the
Wet'suwet'en?
Wet'suwet'en. I think and then I think Wet'suwet'en might be talked about. I'm not sure if this is the Wet'suwet'en though. But they were she specifically is talking about sweetgrass, I believe, or one of the like ceremonial herbs, and how
I think that's the name of the
some
book
of this colonized
that
culture has kind of creeped into, I believe, powwows, or at least some powwows where it's like capitalism has crept in, and the difficulty of like that infiltrating in these powwows. Do you see struggle with powwows getting like?
Yes, commercialized. There's commercial and
I haven't either.
or what they call competition powwows, where you're competing for money, and then there's traditional powwows that there's no competition at all.
Okay, yeah. Jay Jader mentioning there's a bit on commodification of sweetgrass braids and how that influenced the powwow and the powwow culture, and the still working on my like understanding and but basically the person who runs the ritual with braiding with the sweetgrass braid.
Like there's been like white sage has been used for many different like European stores,
And the pagans.
Braves of Success, yeah. And like many of the ones, the indigenous tribes where the white sage grows fluently or freely, are saying, okay, stop, because you're taking it and you're not doing anything to respect on how to bring it back and keep it going for generations, and you're just farming it like crazy to make profit. Stop. You're killing this plant off. You're killing this medicine off. Stop. Just stop. And they literally don't, like, a lot of them are like, whatever. We're white, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, it's like a very, I started just thinking of the word that comes to mind when I'm reading that book and thinking about the ways that capitalism and colonization and white supremacy, it feels entitled. It feels entitled in a way that's like very disrespectful and damaging.
I one time was I was trying to teach a lot of my community about the medicine wheel. So one time I played this video that was about the medicine wheel from a white lady, because I figured, well, I have a big portion of my community that is white, so maybe they can understand and like relate, and it might be easier for them to be able to relate and to understand and to learn from, right? As I started playing it, I started hearing them talking about other things that they were throwing in from around the world into it, and I'm like going,
I'm
no,
not sure, actually.
no, what the fuck? So I stopped the video and I'm like, okay, who the fuck is this person and where the fuck did they get their teachings from? And in their whole entire list of their fucking analog or credentials, so to speak, nothing was mentioned about indigenous tribes. It was all about blowing themselves up as the ultimate authority.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even we indigenous people honor who we learned from. Like, my teacher was the late Melvin Graybear, who was a Yuipi medicine man from the Oglala Sioux Nation. That was my late teacher, who's passed on now in the journey. And when people ask, or when I'm introducing myself, a lot of the times, I will state, yeah, this is who my late teacher was, so that they know, oh, okay, you learned your culture and heritage in way from a UEP medicine man. Oh, okay, yeah. Right? We know and understand, okay, this isn't just something that we just read a book on and then decided that we knew everything about it. Do you know what I mean? And then try and go, well, I'm the only one that, has all this knowledge and wisdom keeper. No. You learned it from somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
And I warn my community against stuff like that. Because when you're intermixing a whole bunch of different cultures into one thing, you can harm people. You run a very high risk of hurting and harming people. And if you're not willing to humble yourself, and admit, yeah, okay, I got this teachings from this person, right? Or these people, or this group of people, or these, different medicine people I got this teachings from. Now you're claiming that you are a god or a goddess, and that no one is above you and everyone else is beneath you. No. You are no longer a human being in my eyes when you do that stuff. And why should I listen to somebody who has no understanding of what it is to be a human being? Goodbye.
To treat other people as equals, because it's just respectful to me. It's just like, if you learn something from someone, I take that as, especially something that's worth passing on in a deep level, especially something like, it just makes sense that you give that respect back in saying like, hey, if you want more information, or this is who I've learned from, and you're just passing on that knowledge. That makes sense.
Right.
But we have
And
become
it's
so like us focused.
I'm not sure. Did anybody catch what Lost Sioux meant in terms of a teacher, like a school teacher or a teacher of I'm not sure if Lost Sioux meant like a teacher of traditional knowledge, or like in what capacity, right?
Yes.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and that's dualistic and linear thinking, which is colonizer mindset. I, me, not us and we.
Mm-hmm.
Or good and bad. There's no in between.
So something I've noticed is, this is gonna sound like a jump, but follow me here. If you talk about someone who's doing something damaging that leads into rape culture,
Hurting.
for example.
Oh,
Follow
God.
me here.
No.
Follow me here. People
Yeah.
get really intense because they think you're making the ultimate accusation, and you're saying they
Mhm.
can't do this or they can't do that, and it's like the conversation gets so extreme. And I'm bringing it back. Trust me.
Mhm.
It sounded like a huge jump, but it reminds me of a similar
Like,
conversation around. I almost want to say like cultural appropriation, which I link to, like, because you can have
Mhm.
cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation, but I feel like cultural
Mhm.
appreciation is when you're like actually engaged with the culture and the people
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
learning and being that humble person that is there
Yeah.
to share knowledge rather than, oh, look at me, I have these credentials and I know this and
Yeah.
I know that and I'm the authority. It's a sharing, it's an appreciation, it's being a part of that and so I think people
Even the most seasoned veteran medicine people will tell you they're just a human being. They're just like you. They're still learning.
and
And that the only one that has the ultimate knowledge is the creator, not us.
that's fair. I think that so much would be like, it brings me back to how our doctors are and how our doctors can be so, and I don't want to 100% put it on them because I think it's what our culture tells them they have to do, but they act like the authority, and it breaks down communication, and I feel like it breaks down that relationship, like it ruins. Sorry.
Now you're getting into a whole entire history where white supremacy pushed its way into science.
Yeah.
And has latched on in science and will not
the
let go.
ultimate answer.
It's the same reasoning why many people believe that the cradle of life started in East Africa.
We're the Duke, after
and
all.
Couldn't start anywhere else, even though human beings came out of the primordial ooze way after the split of the continents. But there's people on this side of the continent that have no DNA markings with any other people from the other side of the continent. So how is that possible? Oh, wait, we can't talk about that because it doesn't fit the white supremacy narrative. Do you know what I mean?
I haven't got it. I don't know anything about that, but I hear you.
A lot of like that's the point, right? Like that's like I'm always asking that question. Like, when can we actually have that conversation? Right? When can we talk about these things? Because what happens in one side of the planet can very well happen on another.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh yeah, this is the only place on the planet or in life where anything has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So because indigenous people and many different tribes within so-called North America have stories and histories of coming from the ground, just like, you know what I mean? The ones we crawl out of the primordial ooze from the ground.
I've only heard Turtle
Right?
Island so far. That's the one
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, Sky Woman.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions and things that, like, we have history dating back long before even Europeans even knew that the world wasn't flat. Like, and it's not just like on Turtle Island. There's like whole Hawaiian, the Pacific Islands, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, and many different Eastern Asian countries that all had a connecting route, trade routes with each other. Long before they discovered how to make a boat and get onto the sea from Europe, right?
Oh, yeah, there, yeah.
So these historical factors that they've done through colonization was to try and destroy all of this wisdom and information and knowledge. Like there's only one book from the Aztecs or Mayans, I believe, that's left when there was thousands of those books. That was like all about numerology, astrology, and stuff like that.
I had another one from Twisted Tensor about 32 minutes ago. Twisted said, I am white, but I am close with my aunt who is indigenous. Since coming out as trans, she has told me a lot about two-spirit people in the Navajo culture. I wouldn't use that label to describe myself, but I find a lot of comfort in the fact that my identity would have been respected in that culture, and I want to learn more. Any advice on learning about these things in a way that isn't cringy and appropriating?
Very simple. Just literally go there and just learn. Don't try to, like, you know what I mean? Humble yourself and just learn. Just saying you want to learn more about your side, this side of your family, and to know who you are. And you're just there to learn. You're just a human being just like everybody else.
So this seems like a common thread. Be humble, be equal with other people. Be there to learn, be there to listen.
Yep.
I am here for this.
Don't act like, go in there, oh, no, I know more than you, I know more than you, because some white book told me so. Just learn, because you're going in there and you're learning something that you may have some understanding of, but you don't know a whole lot about. So you need to learn. You need to humble yourself and remove your ego and remove the need to be the only one that knows every single fucking thing. And even if you might know something, hold back on it. Don't be that person. Don't be that person that just
Yeah. Not every moment has to be a debate.
Yeah.
Like, you can sit back and you can listen and you can take in other information, and maybe you go and you look it up and you're like, I'm not sure about this. But maybe you go and look it up and find out some cool new info that you're like, oh shit, I almost was that person. Oh gosh. And then you get to grow and expand. Yeah.
Your knowledge base and wisdom grows.
I like how Amber, don't be a know-it-all. Nobody likes to know-it-all.
Right? But it's true though. No one likes to know it all.
We're here. I think that's the thing. We're here, and we're here as equals. We're here to learn together. We have different areas of knowledge and experiences, but we can learn from each other.
Like, I'm constantly fighting all the time. When in certain communities where I'm noticing medicine people are like looked at as a joke, but people who have European university or college degrees are considered to be the most intelligent and legitimate. And I'm like going, but wait a minute, most of your fucking knowledge and stuff comes from us indigenous people. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why is it that our Asian relatives who are herbalists and stuff like that is fully accepted for their traditional herbalism and stuff as valid medical practice and just as equal as, you know what I mean, as the European doctors schoolings and stuff. So why is it that indigenous people aren't? We have to learn your way and only talk about your way to be legitimate, not our way.
I try to reach out to Robin Wall I might mess up her name. Kimberly, Robin, Kimberly. I don't know if I know her first name's Robin. She's the one who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, because we were doing readings of this. And if you ever happen to pick it up or listen to an audiobook, my gosh, I would love if you would want to like have conversations on that. No pressure, just tossing out the idea, but holy wow.
Hey, if you can get both me and Robin on here, I'm down for it, and if Robin's down for it,
I will try. I haven't heard back. I sent out an email and I haven't heard back because I realized I was like, well, I was doing actual like readings on stream, and then I was like, hey, this is this book, but then I was like, well, maybe that's not fair to Robin, so I tried to reach out and say like, hey, and I haven't gotten a response, but if I can get her on, that would be super cool, because she talks about that exactly, like going into like having to reject indigenous ways of knowing in her own like to fit into the academic community and her experiences in the academic community and how she had to like re-find her way back. And so it's really, you're like really reminding me of that. And I think that conversation would be super cool. See, I would love to be able to have like a conversation or a panel, or well, I'll see if I can get a hold of her.
Like the racist trope of like the Bering Strait, whether it was from like Asia to Turtle Island or from Russia to the northern part of Turtle Island, all have been disproven, but it's still used as a white supremacist talking point.
Wait, I'm not sure what you're what?
Oh yeah, like the story of indigenous people came over from the Bering Strait, from Asia over to here, and then there's one about like from Russia to over here to the northern part. I'm pretty sure my Inuit relatives would have something to say about that.
The frozen land path, the fabled ice bridge.
The fabled ice bridge. Now, granted, there are some tribes like on both sides, east and west coast, right? On the west coast, there are some tribes that do have one or two DNA markings with some Asian, but then there's still the other DNA markings, because there's like 28 DNA markings within a human body. So if you have one or two DNA markings that like, and then on the East Coast, there's one from like a group of people that used to live in what's now France before France became France, and apparently came over through the land bridge, that Iceland bridge.
You're gonna have to send me information on this, because I'm gonna be honest, I was not great in history class, and I have no bearings on this. So you'll have to shoot me some information over, and I would love to like read up on that.
Sure, like that's like there's a few different YouTube videos on it. As well as they've also discovered a copperhead arrow attached to elk bone and then wood as an arrow that came out from the melting of the ice caps up north in northern Canada, that predates that so-called traverse that they trying to claim as like this traverse that
this is anthropology.
Some Russian or some race in Russia made a traverse over to this side through that bridge.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like there's like a whole history thing.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hit me with links later and like let me catch up on this, because I'm like, wait, I don't even know this Bering Strait, and I'm like, when I hear strait, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gay. What? So
yeah, well, like there's a lot of different racist tropes that they use and like talking points to try and disclaim indigenous people were here on this side of the world,
gotcha.
and that we just like moved over here, so we're not originally from here. We're from some other place. So therefore, we don't have a claim to this land.
Oh, it's like I gotcha. I
Oh,
gotcha.
I
Whereas,
Right?
like, oh, okay. I see
didn't
what
know
you're
that
saying. Well,
racists were using
definitely
that.
you'll have to shoot me some links, so I can
Mhm.
catch up with like get my
Um,
bearings. This is yeah.
some of them, you might need a VPN thing for it.
Okay.
Being that some of them, like the Canadian, like history channels and stuff, talk a lot more about these things
Anthropology
and are
has
a lot more
super
honest
racist
than in the
tropes.
States. And the States just is like, no, we don't want our
Well,
people
it
knowing.
sounds like they were trying to deny land rights based on the fact that it was like, oh no, well technically, you know, like the crossovers from the Bering Strait, so therefore not originally, like, you know what I mean, trying to be like question like. The land
This
rights
history.
based on that.
It's the same thing as we see with the white supremacists talking and trying to remove CRT, critical race theory, out of schools.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right?
I know when I'm out of my I'm history's not my area. I'm like, oh no. But
No problem. Like,
definitely
it's not
shoot
like,
me over and like I'll get caught
Yeah.
up on that. And I wanted to make sure we got Jay Jader's last question in, which is there a respect? I feel like it's maybe somewhat similar, and you might have a somewhat similar answer to Twist's question. But
Mhm.
is there a respectful way for a person of European descent to immerse themselves in a nation or a tribe for the express intent of learning their culture firsthand, or is that just too invasive?
For non-Indigenous people, you're going to find that you are going to be allowed to learn some things, but
Basically,
not everything.
DCC.
Some things need to be kept sacred, and it's not per se shade on you. It's just that people in the past have done everything to steal our stuff and then make profit off of it and act like
Just a
they don't
crazy
even have
SJW monster that wants to
they
indoctrinate
don't have
the
to do
children.
anything to help out the people that they got the knowledge from.
It sounds
But
like
Just a crazy SJW monster
it
that
reminds like
wants
if you
to
break someone's
indoctrinate your
trust over and
children.
over and over again, of course they're gonna
Yeah.
be sus as fuck. Like,
Mhm.
and then you just do that to generation after generation and engage in
Like-
awful genocide.
They're doing things to change it, but there's a lot of not all white people telling Indigenous people what their people's history are.
Like, of course, that only makes
Like-
sense to me.
Our elders used to say that the colonized or the colonizer people would be shocked and amazed that their children or great grandchildren will start coming to learn how to be a human being from Indigenous people and learn all the things that they should have learned instead of colonizing. So our people are aware that, you know, there is, how do I put it? Coming from a European descent leaves a lot of people lost and they don't know. And then they don't know who themselves are. And they're lost trying to find themselves, right?
I feel that personally.
So we already know that. We already know that, like, you know what I mean? It's not something that we don't know. But when you're coming to Indigenous culture, always keep an open mind and always remain humble.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jalen says, don't sit in our ceremonies or listen to our stories if you're going to twist our elders' words, appropriate and capitalize, etc. Like many different books, up until like maybe a decade, have all been rewritten to fit white ideology and reworded to fit white ideology.
It makes sense.
So you're not even getting the whole entire truth of what you know, when we remove the border, because right now I have issues with the border, or shall I say the border has issues with me. Um,
Ah. So if I happen to show up in so-called Canada at some point in the future, we could catch coffee though? Is that possible?
yes, yes.
Hog. All right. But before then, I'm sure we'll catch up. Well, I would love to catch up more with you
Yeah.
and have more conversations.
Like, yeah, like I also wanted to, because we were talking about getting into like male masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
When that's something that you have to look within and fix within. You have to find the balance within it. And if you, and like our medicine wheel teaches us to find that sacred balance within, right? And you have to find a balance within. You can't just be completely non-toxic masculinity, and you can't be completely toxic masculinity. You have to find a balance within, because some of that masculinity is healthy and some of it isn't. So you have to learn on removing the things that aren't healthy for you, that cause you stomach cancer and all kinds of other issues.
Stomach cancer
and-
was so specific. Holy shit.
But it's true.
That's
like,
fair.
seriously.
I trust you. You just hit me where I wasn't expecting it.
Mm-hmm. And this is the thing. It's like learning and realizing that you have both male and female aspect within inside of yourself, and not being ashamed of that feminine aspect.
We are.
It's when you. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we're so looking outwards and trying to perform our gender properly for the people around us, whereas it's like, sorry, you've got all of these aspects inside of you, and it's really, you're not gonna learn from someone telling you how to do masculinity right. I think that's one of the problems I have with the way the masculinity movement has been moving, is it's like, well, let me show you what non-toxic masculinity is, and I'm like, well, you're just redefining masculinity, and you're just telling boys how to be boys again, and boys need to be authentically themselves and feel good and right in that they are them, not who you told them to be, whether that you think that's toxic or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, when Indigenous child rearing, the whole community plays a part in it. But none of the community forces that child to be anything other than themselves. Like, if you wanted to go pick berries, then you went and pick berries. If you wanted to go hunt and play with bows and arrows, you go play with bows and arrows and hunt. You know what I mean? Like, no one sat back and said, no, you cannot do that because you were born with dick and balls, or you were born with a VJ, so you can't do that. Do you know what I mean? No one says that. They allow you to be you and learn and grow.
Thank you, Lost Sioux. That is a beautiful, beautiful message to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Are we done now?
We
but this is
are.
getting so great.
It has been lovely, and I don't want to end it, but I got like 2.5 hours of sleep last night. I was nervous. I haven't got to
were
talk to
you?
you in a while. I was like, I get nervous when I have people on, and I was like, maybe it's a little goofy, but you know, kind of similar with the pronouns thing. I know we're coming from different areas, and there can be misunderstandings, and so, but I had to remind myself, as long as I can, like, you see that I am being respectful, and that I think it's something I'm like, I had to look into myself as like a trans person that often gets microaggressions, and say like, well, that doesn't hurt so much when I know you're looking me in the eye and you see me as a person. And so I had to kind of overcome that anxiety of,
like, I'm not sitting here looking at you and judging you. Oh, you're non-binary. Oh, I see you just as a human being. And whatever you choose to be is whoever you choose to be, and it is my job to respect what you choose to be, because I don't have the right or authority to say otherwise.
And thank you
You're
for
a
showing
human
up
being.
as yourself and bringing your messages today too, Sue. I appreciate that. It's been one of
No
my,
problem.
genuinely one of my favorite conversations I've had on Twitch, so thank you.
No problem. I truly do love and enjoy when I come here and shoot the shit with you and talk about different things. Um, I think we need more people to learn these things and understand these things. Because right now we just live in so much of a closed society-wise, and no one's talking.
Yeah.
No one's truly learning how to listen and communicate with each other.
Well, I think you just modeled that beautifully here, so thank you.
No problem. I try to do my best, and thank you for having me on. Much love, community.
Thank you, Sue. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Have yourself a great day and the rest of your stream.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for watching through the video. I hope you...
So yeah, this was Lumi Rue, and Lost Sioux, and you know, it's not the biggest stream I've had in a long time, but I'm gonna try to do more stuff that is on the wholesome side, right? And I know some people appreciate that. Also, yeah, we're gonna have more streams coming up on stuff that might not be algorithm friendly for people who are members. So I think it's at the... Yeah, I owe you stuff if you're members. Like, you know, at the first level, we have like members only chats, and we're going to do some of those when I figure out how to make that work. And then members only streams. So maybe stuff like this we can do, you know, for members, for people that are really, you know, here for this. Like, you know, stuff that isn't necessarily, you know, the banger as far as doing numbers, but is still like important. And something that I want to highlight. And this was a conversation that happened on Twitch. And as you know, I come from Twitch politics. It is so horrible, so toxic over there. It's nice when, you know, two creators can just meet together and share like these two did. So it was nice to sit and listen to both of their perspectives. And yeah. Anyway, chat, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you later. I'm having a little trouble with my, we started off Final Fantasy 13, but I'm having that thing where it crashes constantly, so I gotta fix that somehow. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. We'll either have to do that or figure out some way to play like Persona 2 Eternal Punishment or something. Maybe that might actually be easier now that like I'm like having all this trouble with Steam. So we'll figure that out and we'll get that going again on Twitch. Usually do night video game streams if you are into that kind of thing on Twitch. So anyway, much love and moe kyung and meow. Oh yeah, like and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate that. Yeah.